and welcome to Morning Brew on Politics Social. Hope you're all doing all right this morning. It is Friday the 13th of September 2024. Good to see everyone in the chat there. We've got We've got Siskadedge saying, hey. We've got Plum Duff, we've got Alan Jackson, we've got Gallifrey and Wren in there, we've got Paul Ewan. We've also got Veg Pie. Hey, Veg Pie, how you doing? Always good to see Veg Pie in there. We've got Vegan Elite. We've got Gallifrey and Wren. I'll say it again. We've got Rob Reed Jones. We've also got Frank Riley, Colin Baker, the Doctor, and Gillian Hope and Jan Wallace saying hello from France. We've got Lee Corn in there as well. Awesome. All very, very awesome. So if you'd like to join the chat on the side of the screen here, all you need to do, subscribe to the channel and wait 30 seconds, and then you can add your voice to the discourse. So today we're going to be talking about the winter fuel allowance, and I know it's kind of it's been done to death over the last couple of weeks. But one of the things that came out today, which I thought was quite interesting, well, it came out yesterday actually, because Keir Starmer said it on the flight over to America to go and see his friend President Biden. It was that there was no impact assessment done on what would happen if they withdrew the winter fuel allowance from all these pensioners. And everyone's saying, oh, hang on, isn't that what Lettuce Liz did with Crazy Kwarteng, eh? Hey, wasn't that what they did? They had no initial impact assessment to see what would happen, and they didn't publish them, and then the markets went crazy. Yes. But here's Starmer's excuse, and I want your take on it, so let me know what you think. He said, yeah, but you see, that costs money. Whereas this is actually going to make us money, because at the moment, up till now, over 10 million pensioners were eligible for the tax credit, the winter fuel payment, which meant there were literal millionaires and a handful of billionaires who were eligible and got this extra 300 quid to keep the house warm, though, the palace, their mansion, their pile. They got to keep their pile warm, an extra £300. Okay, which probably wouldn't heat one room in Buckingham Palace, but there you go. But obviously, people said, oh, okay, this isn't fair. However, it's getting cut down to about 1.5 million pensioners who are still going to be eligible. As far as I'm aware, if you're on the basic state pension and you don't really have any savings, you're not going to get that money anymore, which I think is wrong. I think that the bar should have been set higher. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. I think the bar should be set higher. But now only 1.5 million pensioners are getting that. And Keir Starmer's excuse is, well, if it's going to cost the government more than £10 million to do whatever they want to do, you have to take it through, have an impact assessment, maybe even have a bill going through Parliament. Whereas because it's less than 10 million in costs, because obviously it's going to raise 1.5 billion from the £300 each that we're not going to be giving to millions of pensioners, it's actually going to make money for the Exchequer, so they can pass it using a statutory instrument, which is when you change a piece of legislation without having to go through both houses of of Parliament and then have it signed by the King. So a bit cheeky, but he was like, well, I know the rules, these are the rules, and we're sticking to the rules that were there. But the Tories are screaming about impact assessment, which is a little bit rich. But that's fine, just because they did something horrible in the past. They did lots of horrible things in the past. Doesn't mean they can't point out the government, which is now Labour, doing things that aren't great now. And I think the bar is set too low. I do agree. And I've got half of all pensioners don't need that winter fuel allowance. Half of them don't need that. The other half do. And there's something else that I want to bring up. And I want to know how you feel about it. So let me know in the chat. I'm going to read some in a moment. How do you feel about what's happening to pensioners? And I know that you're probably upset about, or concerned, I should say, about the fact that pensioners on a very low income from their pension won't be getting it. But when you think of pensioners in the UK, if your attitude towards them has been tainted in the last 10 years by some of the things that the overwhelming majority of pensioners have voted for, hashtag not all pensioners, obviously, but not all pensioners sounds a lot like not all men. Yeah. Anyway, so if anyone wants to say in the chat, well, I'm a pensioner and I'm not a bad person. I know. Look. I know it's not everyone. But you can't deny The vast majority of pensioners voted for Brexit. The vast majority of pensioners voted for anyone but Labour in the last election. In fact, they were the majority of voters for Reform. They were the majority of voters for the Tories. Over 80% of the pensioner vote went to other parties, not to Labour. So Labour's not really sacrificing any of its votes here. Has that coloured your opinion about all this? Are you feeling a bit calloused now? Has your heart become calloused by these years of basically having our freedoms being taken away from us by an older generation who got to enjoy them for years and years and years and years? Anyway, it's been done to death, a bit like the elderly, says Jimmy Whistler. Oh my God. Yeah. And we've got Alistair in there saying, morning. I'm saying morning to Cathal. Hello, Cathal. Bugger me, Graham's on time-ish. Oh, God, Johnny got bad. I was on time. It's just, there's a delay. You know, there's a couple of minute delay. So unless I start the broadcast a little bit early, which I'm not going to do, it's not going to happen. If the cost of pensioners not dying means a few millionaires get a few £100 a year extra, then so what? Good point by G. Whistler, but it's not a few millionaires. We're talking 1 in 5 pensioners are millionaires. These are people with gold-plated pensions that they can afford, that they're on final salary pensions. They're getting 55 grand a year for doing nothing, and they have got that every year for the last 30 for not working. And if Labour's going to be the party of the working people, I mean, yeah, it seems a little bit unfair that people who could have worked for the last 30 years but chose not to, just saying, earning that kind of money and then getting extra money on top of it. Oh, I mean, look, let's look at it a different way. Let's talk about buy-to-let for a moment. So buy-to-let, mortgages were not legal before 1996. But after 17 years of Tory government, they thought, oh, do you know what would be great? If we allow people to buy property, people with money or people with collateral, they can get a mortgage to buy this property, and then that mortgage will be paid off by the person living in that property. So that person's work goes to pay a landlord for owning property. Not really doing much. You know what landlords are like. I mean, no offense to the landlords watching this. Hashtag not all landlords, but a lot of them are shit. A lot of them are really, really shit and make their tenants live in absolute squalor. As someone who was a tenant in what I would call a bit of a squalid flat a long time ago, which I tried to make nice, but, there was no central heating in the winter, no central heating, no double glazing. It was just those sash windows that were rattly and cold, and yeah, not great. Not great. It's amazing I didn't die of carbon monoxide poisoning from the Cala gas heater that we had in our bedroom. Anyway, moving on. But yeah, worse than that, worse than the fact that these landlords were making money. You were working to pay off someone else's mortgage. You couldn't get a mortgage for buy-to-let before 1996, but after that, you could literally work your fingers to the bone and give your money, half of it, to another person so they can buy more. They can pay off their mortgage on the property in which you live. You can't pay off the mortgage because you're never going to get anything out of it. But worse than that, if you were on benefits, which I was at the time in Liverpool, I didn't get any income extra, but I got money paid directly to my landlord, directly to the landlord. And where did that money come from? You, the taxpayer. What a great system. So let me get this straight. The taxpayer is subsidising the mortgages for some landlord's second house, third house, fourth house. Why is the taxpayer giving people who do not need this money this kind of money? And we're talking billions here. We are talking about a wealth transfer from working people. So they're working, they're paying tax, they're paying income tax on their work, on their earning, right? And then they're giving what's left, half of it to their landlord. It used to be 9%. It's gone up to nearly half in London. So they're giving half of it to their landlord. And then the landlord gets extra money on top of that. If it's not enough, it gets extra money, which is paid for out the taxes that working person has paid towards the government for our NHS and for our schools, and for our infrastructure, and for our military, and for everything else that we need to do, our scientific endeavours in this country. And do you see why some of us might think that's a bit unfair? A bit, if there's not enough money to go around, should we be giving money to people who really, really don't need it? And definitely don't deserve it. And it's not a few pensioners, it's millions of pensioners. It's literally over 2 million pensioners who are getting this, who are millionaires. And it's not a few. It's not a few. Oh no, that old winter fuel chestnut again says Liebchen. I know, I'm sorry. It's not going to make any money. If everyone claims pension credit, it will cost, but they're not going to because not everyone can claim pension credit. Steve's Retro Loft says, I mean, you don't mean everyone. You mean if the people who can claim benefit that take it, then they won't be. Yeah, good. Fine. Let's have it so the people who deserve that money, who need that money, get it. Need that tax credit, the pension credit, because loads of people don't know that they need that pension credit. And yeah, someone's done the maths and said if everyone who needs a pension credit claims the pension credit, then the savings that are made by this winter fuel allowance being taken out are wiped out. But then look at it another way. No, it's not costing anything. If everyone who was on for pension credit took the pension credit and were paying the winter fuel allowance, then we will be billions out of pocket. This way, no foul, no goal, whatever. No, that's the expression. Anyway, G. Whistler, there's no guarantee that people's claims for pension credit will be processed in time for winter. That's a very good point as well. Well made, because our assessment system is ridiculous and rubbish. Crystal Bowles, the sad thing for the elderly is the ones who switched to Tories in 1979 and voted continuously for privatised utilities. Yeah. I mean, what's the number one? What's the number one thing that has screwed over old people in this country? I don't think it's the fact that, the NHS is on its knees and they're having to wait so long to get an operation. I don't think that it's, that's awful. I don't think that it's necessarily with the fuel payment this winter as the worst. I mean, these are bad things, I guess. They are. The buses. The Tories privatised the buses, except in London, where they weren't privatised, but everywhere else they were privatised. And they're shit. They're absolutely shocking. And older people rely on those buses to have any kind of physical mobility. And you can't have social mobility without physical mobility, as I like to say. But when it comes to pensioners, it means they become prisoners in their own homes because they can't get out anywhere. Disabled people as well. They become prisoners in their own homes because they can't travel anywhere because there are no bus services. And when they are, they're not necessarily equipped to take disabled people. Or more than one disabled person. One per bus, please. It is horrible, the way that the Tories have privatised this stuff and put shit in the water. The British Steel, obviously, going to lose 2,500 jobs. The Talbot, the what's it called? Forge? No, is it the Forge? No, that's not the word. The Forge is when that's what blacksmiths use. Graham, shut up. Blast furnaces, that's the word. They're shutting down the blast furnace down there, and they're replacing it with an electric arc furnace, which can only reprocess scrap metal. It can't make virgin metal, virgin steel. And it looks like Scunthorpe's just gone. Scunthorpe, that's just gone now, and that was a result of privatisation. Because people needed to make profits. Trains, look at the trains. People need to make profits. And when you get on the bus and you are paying over the odds for a bus journey, I can get an Uber to town with me, my partner, and 2 kids. And it will cost us the same to get that Uber as it will to get the bus each. So why get the bus? And that's why bus services, especially in rural areas. I live in slightly rural Durham, although it is only a 10-minute bus ride, so it really shouldn't be £3 each. But there you go. We have the most expensive trains in the whole of the G20, and the worst performing. Privatisation. So my point is, all of these things get massive subsidies from the government. And again, it's money going to millionaires, and I'm sick of it. We've got to stop money going to millionaires. Right, I'm going to public money going to millionaires. Just stop it. Stop subsidising freaking oil companies. Jesus Christ. It would have been 25 years ago today that the moon would have been blown out of the Earth's orbit. What happened? Lol. What happened 25 years ago? What? Plum Duff, as an oldie, I find we get slagged off a lot. I got slagged off as a youngster for being a Labour supporter in the fire service. Hey ho, says Plum Duff. Well, I mean, this is the thing. It's like you don't want to paint everyone with the same brush. However, like with men, we have a huge problem, don't we? Because like men do some really horrible, fucked up shit, and their friends don't necessarily grab them before they do these things, and their friends make excuses for them. Their friends kind of facilitate it. And then afterwards they go, oh, well, I didn't, I can't feel bad about this because, even though I didn't say anything at the time, even though I thought it was a bit wrong. And, a good friend should be looking out for their mates and saying, don't do that, but we don't. And so when we say not all men, it kind of devalues the impact that someone's trying to talk about. When someone says, I want to complain about this thing, the best response is usually to go, okay. It's not to try and defend the people who have wronged that person or to say, well, I'm not bad. I didn't do it. I didn't steal your purse. Someone stole my purse. Oh, well, I didn't do it. Well, that's not really helping. And great, well done. What a flex, So, yeah, I always feel like as a man, I should never say not all men. And if someone who's Scottish wants to slag off the English for voting for Brexit, for me to say, well, I didn't vote for Brexit, I don't think it's really helpful. I think it's going to wind them up even more. It's like, well, so what? Enough of you did. You didn't talk to your older generation people enough to convince them. Although, as anyone who's tried to convince anyone of anything will know, it's very difficult to change another person's mind, even if you know them really well. Good luck if you don't know them at all. Jan says the triple lock rise is worth around £450 when it kicks in. Perhaps the government feels that pensioners are not without. Maybe. It's universal, it's literally fair. The issue of inequality of wealth runs deeper than this. We can discuss capitalism if you like, says Whistler. G. Whistler. Yeah, I mean, no, it's not fair because it's like saying a fine is fair. So if we have a fine for parking, all right, the old Tommy Cooper joke, I can't know Tommy Carr, complimenting my parking, it's a parking fine. If it's, you get one and it's 30 quid, right? Which is fuck all to a millionaire, It's nothing. But to someone who's on minimum wage, or perhaps is only working part-time on minimum wage, or someone who's working 0 hours contract, that could be over half their wages for the day. Gone. They could have worked 5, 6, 7 hours for that. Gone. That money's gone. So it's a lot to them as a proportion of their income. There are houses outside Buckingham Palace by Victoria Station in London that are worth £27 million. I know I sound like I'm plucking a number out my arse there, but seriously, they are worth insane amounts of money and they pay the lowest council tax in the country. They pay about £1,500 a year council tax. Is that fair? Well, all the other houses are paying the same amount. Yeah, but if you're living in a one-bedroom, bedsit, hovel, flat, concrete monstrosity, the windows don't open and you're dying slowly of carbon monoxide poisoning and black mold, I think it's a bit unfair that you're having to pay the same amount as someone who lives in a literal fucking palace for your community charge, your council tax. Just saying that's not fair. So in any given situation where there is wealth inequality that's gone off the charts in recent years, doing the same for everyone isn't making it fair. If you've got someone who's very short who wants to see over a wall and you give everyone the same size box and everyone else can see over the wall except for that person who's particularly short, it's a bit unfair on them. Okay. So, but I do get the whole point. I do get that point about, I feel like the bar was set too low, and I do understand that it's going to take longer to process the claims than they might want it to take, and we can have problems down the road there. Captain Bart Roberts, thank you so much for the super chat. Not to mention the huge hidden subsidy of low wages, that is universal credit. Yeah. So basically, we're allowing these big corporations, Tesco and Sainsbury's and Amazon and whoever else, to underpay their staff. They don't pay their staff as much as they should. So what we do is we top up what they get paid. What the fuck? Seriously, we do that? Yeah, out of our money, we top up. Now, I don't have a problem with those people getting extra money because they need it. What I have a problem with is that these megacorps that can afford to send people into space and that the CEO can buy the biggest yacht in the universe. Big space yacht, flying through space as a yacht for some reason. But they're not paying their workers enough that they can live off that wage. No, absolutely no. That money should not be coming from central government, which is us, by the way. It's our money, taxpayers' money. It should be coming from the big corporations. Come on, be with me on this. Like Walmart, piss off. Seriously. Prometheus ship was awesome. Viv says, no, Labour have to make some changes. If people had made this kind of complaint about the Tories, we wouldn't be in this mess. We need to hold Labour to a higher account. I agree. Plum Duff says, I went to volunteer in a charity helping older folk. It only lasted 20 minutes, full of bleeding racist, silly old fools. And I'm old, says Plum Duff. I feel less bad now about saying, older people, 80% of them. I mean, come on. I know a lot of old people in my life. I know some of them are absolutely incredibly awesome, like my mum. A lot of them are problematic in their views of the world, kind of say. Clubid Bloroscope says, how is austerity going to get us out of the mess caused by austerity? Well, we're going to have to wait till the budget before we can actually say, yes, this is austerity. Because at the moment, this is just kind of clipping around the edges with what they can do. Something and what, just to go back to the original point about the fact they didn't do any impact assessments, they must have gone through a list of stuff and say, well, what can we do? Okay, well, we can tax the rich more. That'd be great. Tax wealth. Why should someone who earns money by just having money get taxed less than someone who works? Like, how is that fair? That's not right. That's going to require an act of parliament, right? So they're actually going to have to change the law on certain things, change the tax code. They can't do that by a statutory instrument. So what they've probably done is looked through a list of things that they could do to save money and gone, okay, what can we do that's going to cost less than 10 million to change? And we can actually change it as a statutory instrument without having to ask Parliament's permission. And they did this. And don't forget, they did have a vote on it. They had a vote on it in Parliament, which they didn't have to have, They didn't have to have that vote this week. I think that was just Starmer trying to, make a list of all the potential traitors. Because, he's Stalin, really. Yeah, you'll be getting airbrushed photos next year of the Labour cabinet with certain members airbrushed out on Photoshop. Or just AI'd out. It's really easy now. Johnny Copperhead, thank you very much for the £2 super chat and the awesome comment, which is Jeff Bezos, the ultimate welfare queen. You're not wrong, mate. You are not wrong. Thank you very much for the super chat. Tesco's have a space program? Yeah, probably. Brexit was on a per person basis, not based on location. If playing the which part of the rock card, then the vast majority of Remainers / rejoiners are ironically in England. That is true, Nick. Good point, well made. But it doesn't help us, does it? And if someone Scottish said, you dickheads voted for this, well, yeah, we did. The British people, as a whole, voted for it. But when you break it down by region, yeah, a lot of older people in the southeast of England voted for this disaster. Austerity is cut to nothing else. This is redressing and reassigning money where it's needed. Good point, Sarah. Alan says, I never claimed people deserve to freeze. I stated that this change should have been announced for 2025 and properly investigated. So don't accuse me of saying hideous stuff like that. Yeah, gee, Whistler, please calm down with your rhetoric. We do not want people freezing to death. Obviously, we're not Tories. Here. Viv Bedge says, pensioners are most likely reading the Mail, the Telegraph and the Express. This is why they have bags over their heads. I know. I mean, those newspapers are responsible for the poisoning of the minds of the elder generation. Like, if they're basically, those schools that Saudi Arabia set up around the world, the madrasa schools that they set up in places like Pakistan and Afghanistan and Syria and Morocco. They set up these madrasa schools, which were basically, to graduate, you just had to memorize the Quran. Yeah. So they tended to get a lot of militants coming out of them who just thought about religion all the time because that's all they were taught in those schools. And it just absolutely consumed them in the same way that older people who read those newspapers are absolutely consumed by their hatred of anyone foreign or anything foreign, except when, they need those people to look after them in their old age, or they like the tasty food that comes from other countries because British food is shite. So, yeah. I feel like the people who read these newspapers, they are brainwashed. 30 years, 40 years of drip-fed hatred towards, people who are different. El Maestro, I remain irrationally convinced that the UK is 2 to 4 years away from the most politicians running away from admitting they ever endorsed or supported Brexit shambles. No, El Maestro, I disagree on that. I mean, you might be right, but I don't, because what you've seen is Farage coming back. You saw Boris Johnson coming back as well. Boris Johnson managed to come back by saying, I'll do Brexit properly, because Theresa May hasn't done it properly, so I'll do it properly. And then Farage came back saying that Boris Johnson didn't do it properly. And it would have been amazing had he done it properly. And this is like communism all over again, where people said, oh, well, if people did it properly, it would have been great. It's just that everywhere it was tried, in Cuba and the Soviet Union, other places around the world, China, where it was tried, they just didn't do it right because the people in charge were corrupt. Yeah, funny that. It's almost as though you need a system where corrupt can be held to account. Not that they are if they're rich enough, I guess. Tax the rich, says G Whistler. Yes. I do feel sorry for the ladies of Afghanistan, says Plum Duff. So do I. Incredibly badly let down by Donald Trump, who negotiated with the Taliban to get the troops out of Afghanistan. Disgraceful behaviour. Christopher Bowles, the problem for Labour is they need a balanced budget, otherwise they'll be demonised. Easiest attack for the Tories, Labour spend other people's money and then run it out. There is no balance. It's true. Michael says, the thing that I hate is all the hoops you have to jump through to satisfy the senseless bureaucracy. Michael, couldn't agree with you more, mate. Couldn't agree with you more. It's something that I find inherently frustrating and infuriating, I should say. It's bureaucracy. It is the fact that you make one mistake on a form, you put one letter in the wrong place, one number in the wrong place, and you effectively get fined. You get fined for that because it's going to cost you money. And we have these traps everywhere. You've got to be so on the ball about everything. You buy something, you go somewhere, you organise something, you make one little mistake. I'll give you an example. And I know this is going to sound a bit like Matt, but whatever. I can't usually afford train fares because they're ridiculous in this country. It costs me £104 return from Durham to Liverpool. Who has that kind of money? £104. Are you shitting me? If we fill up our electric car with electricity from our house, it costs about £3 to fill it up to get to Liverpool. Just 4 of us. What are you going to do? So I often travel on the coaches on the Megabus, which is unfortunately owned by Stagecoach, but what are you going to do? The other one is National Express. Now, I have refused to travel on National Express for a number of years now because I booked a bus to Manchester, I think it was, a couple of years ago, and I booked it for Wednesday, the 13th of March or whatever it was. And then as soon as I had booked it, I realised, shit. It was 13th of February, I think. I thought, shit, it was March. Because it's February and March have the same days, because it's 28 days in February, usually. I just made a mistake, like an innocent mistake. And I knew it as soon as I pressed, pay, right? It comes up with the receipt. I thought, I put the wrong month in. So I instantly called them up, right? Because there was nowhere to amend it on the internet. I called them up and said, I need to amend my ticket. I've just bought it literally 5 seconds ago. I just need to check because I put the wrong date in. Said, okay, we can do that for you. That's fine. I said, will it, do I have to pay to change the ticket? And they said, well, you don't have to pay any extra because it's the same price for the fare, but you won't have to pay any extra for the fare, but you've got to pay an admin charge to change the date. And I said, how much is the admin charge? And the lady on the phone said £13. The ticket was £11. What are you supposed to do with that? Like, seriously, I know the anecdote's probably bored you to death, but wake up. Like, what? What? How is that legal? How is that? Like, you've made a little mistake and now you have to pay double for your ticket. Or when you get on a train and you muck it up because there's so many different train companies and train tickets and fares and times and everything, and you get on the wrong train and you're like, honestly, I thought that this was this one. Oh, no, it's the next one, is it? Yeah, but I was supposed to make a connection, and I wouldn't have been able to get on that train because this train was late getting into Newcastle. Yeah, but the train that you were supposed to be connecting to was also late getting into Newcastle. I'm like, fine, there you go, 80 quid, fine. I mean, it might be a new ticket or whatever. I just call it a fine. It's a fine for making any small bureaucratic mistake in this life. There is no buffer. There is no reasonable adjustment. The government, not the government, the train companies have just had to pay out a shitload of money to people they are fined for being on trains without a ticket when they turn up at the train station and like the machine's out of order. There's no one at the train station. They've got on the train to buy a ticket and they're like, oh no, you can't buy a ticket on the train, mate. Sorry, I'm going to give you a fine now. I could just give you a ticket, for £2.50, but no, I'm going to give you a fine instead. Disgraceful. Farage riots. Yeah, we haven't said that for a few days. Anyway, so I'm just going to jump over to the papers very briefly because we're past time. It's my favourite pastime. We've got The Mirror, final insult. Heartbroken families fury as sellers of knives used to kill their loved ones are given £300,000 compo for handing in blades. Jesus, this is the knife amnesty that they brought in. I didn't realise we were getting that much compensation. There's a story in the Times, which is a good thing. They say that junk food adverts are banned before 9 p.m. to take weight off the NHS. God, if that means that I don't get any more bloody adverts for Domino's on my freaking YouTube feed, I'm all for that. Domino's, piss off with your freaking excessive ad and that little stupid yodeling fucking jingle. Sorry. I just hate it when things get stuck in my head. Long-range missiles means war, once Putin. Yeah, you've said that a few times, mate. No one believes you anymore. Starmer tells Putin, you started this war, you can end it at any time, which is true. He can just withdraw the troops from Ukraine, and then that's it. It's all done. Israel raid on Gaza, school kills 6 UNRWA aid workers. Another horrible story coming out of Gaza. Nearly had a year of this now, non-stop cavalcade of horrors coming from the Gaza Strip. Israel needs to be reined in, and to do that, we need a big international consensus to tell them to wind their fucking neck in and to stop selling weapons to them, etc., until they stop being so fucking horrible to the Palestinian people. But that doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon, unfortunately. Nanny, my real friend Harry. This is from the Daily Mail. Kind, funny, and pretty damn normal. They're being nice about Harry. Not being nice about Meghan, are they? Wonder why. Nanny Starmer's ban on junk food ads to save the NHS. Can I just say this? Probably going to get demonetised. So maybe if you want to give me a super chat, that'll be nice, because I'm not going to make any money out of this video after saying, Daily Mail, go fuck yourself to death, and then fuck yourself some more. Thank you. Fucking gobshites. Nanny Starmer, ban on junk food. We've got an obesity epidemic in this country. We've got people dying of diabetes in their 30s. I mean, fucking hell. Just don't get me started. Anyway, Lammy, UK missiles are vital to stop Putin there. And also we've got junk food TV ad ban before 9 p.m. with total ban online in 2025. Yes! Take that, Domino's. I do want to see the going back to the missile thing. What Ukraine wants is for for them to be able to use missiles to fire into Russia, so they can actually blow up the places that are sending missiles into Ukraine, which they're not allowed to do at the moment, but they want to be allowed to do it. Baroness Boffinus at Oxford Uni reveals secret to beating stress is to tickle some timber, keep calm, and stroke a chair. Oh, God, Daily Star's bonkers. There's a good headline on the Daily Star yesterday, though, about the debate and about Elon Musk. Esther's hope as key vote backs law change on assisted dying. So that's good. We're going to actually have a system of euthanasia in this country, which a lot of people would like to see. State finances on unsustainable path of overspending, Fiscal Watchdog says. That doesn't surprise anyone, I don't think. And Starmer takes on NHS. No new cash without reforms. This was his speech yesterday. That was made shortly after the Morning Brew show, hosted by Uncle Phil yesterday, where Starmer said basically it's reform or die for the NHS, which is understandable. We talked about that yesterday. Great efforts this week, Graham, from Cathal. Oh, thank you so much. That's really sweet of you. Thank you. Go back over here. Oh, subscribe. And there's only one fast food I truly love. Pizza, says Captain Bart Roberts. Sarah says, my singular complaint and fear about Labour is Wes Streeting still in charge of NHS planning. Sarah, I understand that completely. Wes Anderson? Stop calling him Wes Anderson. He's a film director. Wes Streeting hasn't made any friends in the trans community or allies of the trans community happy with what his, hiding behind the cast report. I think it's pretty disgraceful myself. He needs to be concentrating on other stuff rather than this punitive ban on puberty blockers for a literal handful of trans young people. For swearing at the Mail. Oh, thank you so much, Colin Baker. Thank you for the £5 super chat. That makes up for the fact that this video is now officially demonetized. Two things you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to swear, and you're not allowed to ask, hope that someone dies. I'm not asking for person to die. It's just the Mail, it's the newspaper. Take the Express and the Telegraph and the Times along with you. I mean, they are a dying breed, thankfully, and no one under the age of 50 reads newspapers anymore, because why would you? We're not going to tell you the news. We're going to tell you what to think about the news. We're going to tell you what to think by dripping poison into your brain for year after year after year. Isn't that funny? Isn't that handy? Isn't that furniture fetish handy for Vance? It is, yeah. He's right into his couch as he is couch surfing. Donna Kebab, yum, says Plumduff. What the hell does reform or die mean? The implication mean that he'll let the NHS collapse? No, I mean, they're not going to. They're going to reform it. And if they don't reform it, the NHS will be no more, which is true. I mean, the NHS is so unbelievably fucked at the moment by 14 years of Tory cuts and mismanagement and the duplication of so much stuff and part privatization of things and people waiting for over 2 years for operations. I'm waiting in A&E for 48 hours. I mean, the system, if you don't think there's a problem with the NHS, then fine, but that's the starkest possible terms that he can put it in. Like, we need to do something about this. And looking at the amount of money that goes to the NHS as a proportion of income to the government, it's gone up from when Labour were in 2000, from about like 20%, it's now over 40%. And that's because of austerity as well. The Tory government have cut from other places, but also the idea of just throwing money at the NHS. I know it's a cliche, but that's not all you need to do. Obviously, some things in the NHS need to be better funded, but they really need to fix the foundations. I'm sorry, I'm using Starmer lines here. I think we need to fix the foundations, but I think on some things they're kind of right, and I'm hopeful that they'll make the right decisions about this stuff. I've got no guarantee that they will, but I'm not going to sit here going, "Oh God, they're awful. Oh, they're going to mess everything up. They're going to do this. They're going to do that." When I don't know, and you don't know, we don't know. Are you sure you meant to say Tory cuts? No, I didn't. Lecture taming. I think the C-bomb's a bit too far. Don't want to get the whole channel demonetized. Viv Burgess, too many chiefs and not enough Indians in the NHS. I don't know, I suppose it's politically correct to use that terminology anymore. Let's just say not enough Native Americans. It needs reform. Labour will we put more money in, but they have to get the money first and a better system. I agree. We had nearly 500,000 new vote registrations since the debate and the swift endorsement, and get her out the vote at the Music Video Awards. That's from Cats and Jam. Yes! Yes! Do you know what I really like? I like cats and I like jam. So I like your name. Okay, Snowy Cat. I also like snow. So there you go. I like cats and snow. Streeting is a god botherer, no place for it in politics, which is weird because he's gay and the church has always been so freaking homophobic. And then to turn around and go, no, actually, I like these people. Seems a bit odd to me. So that's all good. And and BUFU Mike is saying, is the elephant in the room the whole Brexit lack of freedom of movement not helping us fill the 100,000 odd vacancies? I think Labour are going to make some moves on that as well. They are talking about closer relations with the EU, and we are looking, and we've discussed this on the channel before, we are looking at some kind of like outer orbit of the EU where we're not full members and we don't have full freedom of movement like we used to, but we've got something approaching it, because we can't have a better deal than the people who are in the EU, countries that are in the EU, obviously, and but we do need that support from overseas because we just aren't making enough children, which is my fault as well. I don't have any kids of my own, sorry, but better things to do. Viv says, sorry, Graham, I'm very old. I do have dodgy PC terms still. I'm afraid it's fine, mate. It's fine. Centralisation and digitization. I thought that said digestion there. Centralisation and digestion, very important for a modern healthy diet. And digitalisation were core to how Estonia did austerity without cutting frontline services and now have a 20% tax rate for income, VAT, and corporations. That's a country that I would like to emulate. Famously, Estonia has in their capital, Tallinn. Sorry, let me have a quick coughing fit. Drank all my bloody coffee. I need to go and get a glass of water, so I'm going to get. But yeah, Estonia, Tallinn has free public transport, which is great because public transport should never cost money. Because it doesn't cost money, because public transport always pays itself back 10 times over in a growing economy for that area. Because the more you move, the more you spend, the more you can make. Right, thank you very much. I've gone way over time, but it's always nice talking to you. And thank you for everyone to, keeping reasonably respectful in the chat there. We'll be back at 1 o'clock with Uncle Phil, Phil Morehouse, from a different bias. If you're not already subscribed to his channel, please subscribe. He does at least 2 videos a day talking about politics, and you might not agree with all of it, but I guarantee you'll agree with a lot of it. We'll be back at 1 o'clock to just give a bit of a roundup of what's been happening this week in the UK. And then in the evening at 9:30, we'll be doing the old politics social. So join us for that after Maximilian's stream ends at 9:30. We'll be starting here on Politics Social, and it'll be good to see you. And it looks like it's a beautiful sunny day here in Durham today. So please, if you do have some sunshine, enjoy it while you can, because it's getting pretty cold pretty fast. Until next time, thanks for watching. Give us a like on the way out, and I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.